Welcome to Building on the Light. Building on the Light is about having eyes to see the pieces of light even in the darkest parts of our experiences and to grab them, to own them, and to have them be a part of what we build our life on. So today I have as a guest again my lovely friend Jodi Orgill Brown. She is the adversity architect, anti-fragility, resilience, and interactions expert, motivational speaker, brain tumor survivor, author of 5 wonderful books, champion storyteller, and certified business coach and consultant. We're so excited to have you here today, Jodi. She came on my other podcast, Survivor Shift, and talked about the dark things, the hard things that she's had to overcome and ways that she overcame them. So today she's here to talk about the tools, the pieces of light that she has gathered during her trials and her different experiences in life. So thank you, Jodi, so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about how we can let our light so shine.
There you go. And her first book is The Sun Still Shines. You can show your books that and that's what it's about. It's about the light that's still there even in our most difficult trials. So Jodi, I know you have so many wonderful tools that you share, and so I'll turn the time over to you.
Surviving adversity and trauma and challenges is not the finish line. Shining is the finish line.
Oh,
It is
beautiful.
when we can learn to build a life that we love and emanate light because of what we've been through, not in spite of it. I think too often we find ourselves stuck in, I just got to get through it. I just got to get through it, as though getting through it is the goal. Getting through it is the first goal, but it's only the basic one. Shining, getting to the point where we are helping each other, that's where the real goal becomes meaningful, because then it's meaningful not only to us, but it's meaningful to other people as well when we are shining our light and opening up ourselves and our
Oh,
stories to help other people. There are a
beautiful.
few tools I have learned along the way on how to do this. And the first one is so simple, people are going to laugh and say, really, this is your advice? Um, but when I was coming out of the hospital from multiple brain surgeries and overcoming, I don't even want to say overcoming because I still haven't overcome, but conquering to a degree my brain tumor, I found myself still a very, very sick person. And I did not know how to get back to a place of where I felt like me again. And all I knew to do was to start showing up. And
Mm.
so I started putting dates on the calendar of this day, I'm going to show up in this place. When everyone in the world was
Mm.
saying, stay home, recover, stay in bed,
Right.
let your body heal,
Wow.
I thought I have to have things to look toward where I need to show up and be present. And so when back to school night came, I signed up to show up to be a volunteer in my kids' classroom. And I didn't show up for the 2:30 shift at the end of the day so I could sleep and rest all day. I said, I want to be there for the first shift of the day, right when school starts. So I will be up, I will have to be ready, I will be out the door, and I will bring my kids to school and I will show up with them. And
Wow.
I did that every 1 to 2 days a week for the next 3 years. And some weeks that was all I showed up for because I was still a very, very sick person. And at times I
Wow.
would get there and they would hand me a stack of construction paper and scissors and have me cutting things out of construction paper. And I thought, what in the world? What a waste of my time. And then I had to reframe my thoughts and realize what I'm doing is not as important as the fact that I am here. I showed up, I left my house, and I came to be present in this moment.
Man. Oh my gosh. Beautiful. So challenging yourself and not giving in, because when we go through major traumas, we have all the excuse we need to say, never mind,
We
but
do.
instead
And sometimes we
challenging
have those
yourself.
days and we stay in bed. But if you
Right,
do that for too long, if you don't put a deadline to your down days, then your down days are going to turn into downward spirals. And so you have to
right.
give yourself reasons to get out of the house, to leave the situation you're in and go to a better situation.
And
And
it's not something somebody else to, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
over time, the fact that I showed up at the school every week also gave me other opportunities. I got to know the teachers, I got to know the principal. They asked me to sit on a community board that represented the school's interest. I got to actually have some influence in the school. I got to help be in my kids' classrooms and be a reading tutor or be a classroom mother. Things that all helped me grow closer to my own children and my family, as well as giving me opportunities to help other families, which was exactly what I needed at that time.
Wonderful. And I love that it's you chose. You didn't have somebody nagging at you saying you should get up out of bed or whatever. You could make your own assessment and decide when and how to challenge yourself, right?
And I did the same thing with my job. I was the director of a nonprofit organization at the time, and they had given me a leave of absence when I got
Right.
sick. And I said, I don't think you should hold my job. I don't have any idea if I'm going to survive, and if I do, how long I'm going to be gone. I don't think you should hold my position. I thanked them for it, but I said, I think you should plan to hire someone else. And to their credit and their grace that they gave me, they said, no, we are going to be here with you and we're going to save your job for you. So for 8 months, when I was on leave, they saved my job. And I cannot tell you how important it was for me to have that date on the calendar again, where I decided this day, this is the day I'm going to show up and go back to work. And even though it was an arbitrary day that I chose on the calendar, knowing that I needed to get myself ready then gave me steps. I worked backwards from the deadline and said, okay, that means I have to be able to walk on my own and have my body be strong enough. And I have to, feel well enough and be rested. And so it gave me all of the little steps to take when I worked backwards from my deadline. So it, again, showing up for something sounds simple and small, but there's so much to it that it can really become life changing.
So I have to ask you though, do you have times where you have that date on the calendar and you get to that date and realize you really aren't able to show up yet? Have you
Oh,
ever had
that's
that?
one of the struggles that I have. So here's where I am on that, and I'm gonna do a little bit of full disclosure here. Yes, I definitely still have those days where I can't show up. And I had some organizations that I was a part of that had an attendance requirement of being part of the organization. Oh, this is an honor to be, you're on in this position, you're on this board, and you have to show up 75% of the time. Well, this is an organization within the community where 75% of the time might mean 40 times a year to show up in an event. And sometimes I was just there, but other times I would
Wow.
be speaking or I would have some small part to play. And I had to go to them and say, I, I just don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can commit to being there 40 times a year.
Right.
And they actually went back to their leadership organization and talked to the leadership committee. And they came back to me and said, we recognize your situation and we would rather have you here when you can come than have you not here at all. And so they totally excused me from the attendance requirement and just said, come when you can.
Wow.
That
Wow.
never would have happened had I not been willing to give it all up to begin with.
Right. Right.
Um, the tricky thing is when I book a speaking engagement and I'm booking it months in advance, 6 months, a year in advance, I don't know what my life is going to be 6 months from now. I don't know what it's going to be like tomorrow. If I'm going to wake up with a migraine or problems with my eye or my head. And so I have really, really struggled with how to do that. And
Yeah.
uh, I have stepped away from a lot of the voluntary commitments. And when it comes to something that I am getting paid for, like a speaking engagement, there has only been one time in 15 years where I was not able to show up. And literally, that was because I had to go into emergency surgery. Every
Wow.
other time, no matter how I felt, because I'd made a promise to them, I had made a promise to myself that I'm going to show up no matter what. And I may have had to show up on a painkiller or holding on to the podium as I gave a speech, which is not the way that I normally would give a presentation. But when I make that promise to someone else in that regard, I find a way to show up. And I will tell you what, sometimes I am praying my guts out the whole way there that I will just be able to get through it. And every single time I've been able to get through it. God has lifted me some miraculous little bit of energy or caffeine kicked in or whatever it is that I have been able to get through those moments and only had to cancel that one time. And so that has also proven to me that even when I'm not at my best and I think I can't show up, the reality is I probably can. And on the times that I'm really not good and I need to just be home in bed, I try to use those more flexible times to do that. I cancel out on the things that are not mandatory, which means I also protect my time and my space. And if I've got some
Right.
big speaking engagements, I protect the days before and I protect the days after. So I can save up
Right.
my energy. And so then I can spend the time in bed recovering after I have given all of my energy to that organization for my speaking engagement.
Wow. I love that. And it has to do with confidence too. It seems like you have to have the confidence that you have it in you, right? To fulfill that commitment and just to believe. So, just like so much of our healing is about, you have to believe, right? You have to believe, you have to have hope. But I love that. So, even believing that you have that strength to draw on, that somewhere in you, you can do that. I think that's a really powerful
And you
message.
know what else happens when you are vulnerable and honest? I have admitted to audiences before, I am not at my best today. I'm having a hard time, or this is a struggle that I experience. And so I'm going to hold on to the podium because I don't have any balance right now. When you are authentic and vulnerable with an audience, it gives them more trust in you because you are not trying to pull one over. You are not trying to be
Mm.
perfect. They know that you're real, they know that you're raw and human, and they are willing to give you grace because of it. And so some of the
Wow.
times when people have come up to me after a speaking engagement and said, "Oh my gosh, that was so wonderful." And I have practically broken down and said, "Thank you so much just for even your kind comment because I feel terrible today and I didn't know if anything coherent came out of my mouth." And that's when the look of shock comes on their face and they realize, oh my gosh, she's still in the middle of it. She's still fighting that battle and she fought that battle today while she was on stage in front of us. And so
Wow.
when I have those moments and I admit it to them, I honestly, it just draws us closer together because we're people and we have that human connection that comes when you open up and share.
You know, That's beautiful. Also, it's so important. That's what I have found is when I quit trying to be somebody else and just go ahead and be me, full me, the broken me, the good me, the strong me, the weird me, whatever it is that I am. It just opens us up for connection, and we all need connection with each other. And if we're willing to be authentic, vulnerable, right, and just putting ourselves out there, oh my goodness, just two beautiful, beautiful
Well,
things. And I know they seem simple, but I'm telling you, I'm going to watch this over and over again and make notes and figure out how to expand on these things in my own life.
well, one thing you just said there was the broken me. But
Yeah.
what happens when something breaks? When something breaks, if you have uh, a mug, a coffee mug or something like that, when it breaks, what happens? It might fall apart, but it also creates a hole. And that hole is a place where light can emerge. So
Oh,
sometimes it's our places of brokenness that actually point to where our light can shine the brightest, is through those places of brokenness.
oh,
So
wow.
no matter how you might feel broken, the fact that you feel broken means there's something within you where light can now shine through that space. If you had been whole, light would not have gotten through.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm just going to keep saying wow. I know that's, I don't really feel like I have anything to add to that. I feel like just really some good things to think about, on our healing journey. And I know, like I talked about in the beginning, that there are pieces of light even in our darkest places. But I love that it helps me be more okay with being broken, you know?
Because if you
Yep.
had that light and it was contained within that mug and you had a little lid on the mug to keep your drink warm, that light would never get out. It's only when it
Gosh.
breaks that that light can shine through. Because sharing our light, sharing our stories, I think is sharing our light. And so we learn from each other. And you and I have talked about this, that you'll share something, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I love the way you shared that. That changed the way that I see things because of the way you share. So I love when we share our light and our stories with each other. It empowers us. But one of the other lessons that I have learned is in becoming something that's called anti-fragile. And anti-fragility is a concept of where there are systems in place that allow you to become stronger and to grow through the things that are stressors, things that would make you weak, or even things that are seeking to destroy you. All of those things that make you feel broken, not good enough, I screwed up, I made a mistake. Anti-fragility is a property of systems that helps you grow stronger because of them. And I love that concept. And I found the concept at a time where I was desperately trying to figure out how to live my new normal life, which was so vastly changed from my other life. And one of the principles of anti-fragility, one of the systems to have in place, is to build in redundancy. Well, redundancy, that's redundant. Why would I want to do the same thing twice? Why would I want to have? And at first, to me, that sounded silly and I didn't get it. And then I had some experiences where the aha light came on. And a couple of years ago, when I was in a very bad cycle with my brain trauma and with my migraines, I got invited to be on a podcast, not unlike this one. And normally I make myself some notes and I prepare, and then we just have conversations. But this particular time, I had a specific thought in my mind, which I will call a prompting. I believe it was a prompting from God giving me a heads up. And I actually wrote out word for word the lines of what I wanted to say. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous. I already know what I want to talk about. I already have my bullet points, but I literally scripted out as though I had to say it word for word. And I thought, this is totally redundant. and probably a waste of my time. And then I woke up that morning and I had one of the worst migraines I'd ever had. And I could not think. My own thoughts were not there. And we were getting ready to go on camera. And I thought, how in the world do I do this? I do not have the thoughts in my brain. Even the bullet points were not enough to keep me on track. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I wrote it all down, word for word. And they had given me ahead of time some questions that were going to be prompts to start a discussion. And so literally, without the audience or the host of the show realizing it, when she asked me a question, I looked at my script and I read word for word what I had written down on my page. And we got through the entire podcast, and she had no idea that I was in some of the greatest pain, and I could not think at all because the words were still there. And that taught me that there are reasons why sometimes you want to have a backup. When your computer crashes, you definitely want to have a backup system.
Right.
When your brain crashes, you need a backup system too. And so, whatever that looks like in what you're doing, if you can create in that backup system that redundancy that you're like, why am I doing this? I've already done this. I already prepared for this. And then you show up and your slides don't work, or your video doesn't play at your presentation, or whatever the scenario is. If you have another way around it, if you have created redundancy, then you will be able to go forward even when the bad situations occur and you might feel like you would otherwise fail.
Wonderful. Actually, what comes to mind, something to talk about very simple, in sports or music, playing the piano. You play those stupid exercises over and over and over again. So that way, when your eyes see those notes, your hands automatically do it. So it's the same kind of idea, right? So
Or
that's
when
how
you're
we,
so nervous that your eyes stop seeing the notes, you've got muscle memory that will keep you
yeah, there you
going.
go. There you go. And with sports or with any aspect. So I love putting that to the healing process and being able to deal with our weaknesses, right? Those boundaries that we'd rather not have, but life has given us and there's no way around it. So we have to continue to do those things, keep showing up. You have taken the whole concept of choosing to believe to a whole new level for me. This has been eye-opening and amazing. And I know the reason I am still here today is because every step of the way, no matter how horrible and impossible everything was, I know I chose to believe. I chose to believe, like my friend Cindy Chosick talked about, the sliver of light.
I
And I
love
chose to,
Cindy.
yeah, she's a beautiful woman and a beautiful message there. But she, talked about believing that there's something beyond this, that there's something better, if I just hang on kind of thing. But I love these so practical ways of applying that choosing to believe to really kind of stepping it up, to the next level of what you can be and what your life can be. Because I am a firm believer, regardless of what we're called to go through, we can build a life that we can thrive in and one that's uniquely our own. It doesn't have to look anything like we planned out when we were 13, and it doesn't have to look anything like the neighbors or, our best friend or whatever, but we can build a life that we can thrive on. And that's what it's about, right? It's about choosing to believe every step of the way. But I love this. These are great tools for learning to choose to believe in yourself,
Well, we
right?
can't always change the outcome of our situations. You can't change what
Right,
happened to you. I can't change what happened to
right.
me. But we can change the experience that we have. And by changing the experience, we can also change that experience for others as well by choosing to believe, by choosing to share the light with others, that changes our experience of it too, because we're no longer locked inside of ourselves. We're not trapped. We're not victims. We are
Right.
people going through things. We can't change the thing that's happened, but we can choose the way that we experience it for ourselves and for others.
Right. And choosing, oh wow, just choosing to be what we want to be. I think
Yes.
it's easy to slip into the victim mode. Not that we mean to be in the victim mode or, want to have a pity party or something, but it's so easy to slip into that. Well, of course I'm limited because I have all this. So, and then just stay stuck there, right? Instead of digging deeper and reaching higher. I love that. I just love it. I love it. Do you have
One
any more beautiful wisdom you want to share?
one of the other principles that I teach all the time when I speak, I call it the parachute principle, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I live about a mile and a half from an airport, and it's a little
Okay.
regional airport. It's the best airport ever to fly out of because I can literally be there in 2 minutes, and it makes the whole process so easy. But about every 30 minutes, all summer long, I will hear this very distinct sound, and it's the hum of a specific plane engine that I've come to recognize because I hear it so often. And when I hear this specific plane engine, I know it's time to look up because the parachuters are just about to jump out of the plane. And I'll look up, and first I'll see like these teeny tiny little ants flying through the sky. And then all of a sudden, you hear a whoosh, and you can see as the fabric first kind of starts to flutter, and then it opens up and becomes the parachute. And then you hear the most glorious sound that there is, which is the woo of the person who is floating magically to the ground and having this incredible experience. Well, what I have watched over and over and over again as I've seen these parachutes is that these parachutes, they're not made of just like two ropes on either side. It's not like, okay, there's one rope holding you here and there's one rope holding you here. No, these parachutes are more like webs. It's a whole intricate system of interconnected rope, whatever it is, nylon rope of some kind, that forms this web that holds the parachute up. And that way, if there is something that happens, if there is one part that gets torn, if there's one part that gets cut, it is not going to cause failure. So to me, the parachute principle means you don't want to do anything in your life that is going to be cutting all of your ropes. You don't want to have something that's a single point of failure, where if I go down this road, it's the end game, or this is the final step. And we have talked about before that sometimes you get into a place in your mind where you're in such a bad place, you think there's nowhere left to go but to end it. Or there's no way out. I can't take another step forward. That's when the parachute principle comes into play. You can't do anything where you are cutting all of your lines because the reality is you have all of those little webbed pieces. And so if you create your life with those webs, that means when you're having a hard time, rather than trying to take a giant knife or scissors and cut through everything, you look at what all of those little knots are. And one of those knots might be, I'm going to call my best friend and just tell her I'm having a hard time. And a different knot might be, I'm going to get online and listen to some of my favorite music that uplifts me. And a different knot might be, I'm going to go out in nature and be in a happy place where my soul and my heart can feel happy. But it's that creation of that, all of those little knots in your web that are going to hold you up so that you don't have any one thing that if that one thing goes wrong is going to take you down. If your best friend doesn't return your text, that can't be the end of it. You have to then rely on all of the other little knots that are holding your parachute in place.
Right. And we've had several guests and they talk about like one of my friends talked about her passion for dance and how that's been a lifeline. So that's interesting that you're talking about the parachute with all the different lifelines, right? And they are things like nature, music, dance. Like I said, my friend dance. I had a Nancy Stevens was on and talked about somatic exercises, breathing exercises, and yoga and things like that. So I love that though, that we can build a whole web. So we're not relying on just one thing that might fail. So we
Because
create,
let's
we
face
find,
it, we don't want to be able to say, this is the last thing I'm going to call my sister, I'm going to call my best friend. What if they can't pick up the phone? Like you don't
yeah,
want to ever get to the point where you only have one rope that's holding you between here and the next life. You've got to get to a point where you recognize in order to enjoy that woohoo view of the
right.
world, you have to
Yeah.
have all of the different pieces that are webbed together that keep you floating. And that's one thing that I have come to the conclusion of is that when I get to a bad place, that I have to start looking at, okay, what can I do today? Right, what can I do right now in this minute? Can I put on my happy playlist? I literally have certain artists that I listen to when I need to pick me up. It's some spiritual artists, some happy songs, sometimes it's something with a fun beat. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and sometimes I put on my 80s and 90s music and I'll grab the broomstick and I'll have a dance off in my
Yeah.
kitchen because that's what I need in that moment. Sometimes
Right.
I just need light, sunshine, and I need to go stand in the window and open the blinds and see the light. Sometimes I need to get out in the light. Sometimes I need to talk to a friend. Sometimes, people love their pets. They need to just cuddle someone who has no expectations of them other than to love them back. So, whatever those things are in your life, you need to know them and maybe even list them out so that when you can't think for yourself anymore and you're in a bad place, you can grab your list and you can look and you can start going down the list of what could I try right now? What are my little webs in my parachute that can keep me going?
It makes me think too, parachute, there's a bunch of them. I tend to think of, well, this is my thing that I like to do. I have a morning ritual that I have to do. It's for my emotional well-being. I have to have kind of a meditation time of my own design over the years. I kind of do my own thing, and I have the luxury of living at the base of the Eastern Sierra.
Mm.
And I have beautiful picture windows. I have a whole big wall of windows, and that's what I look out at in the morning. I have to have my quiet time. When my kids were home, I got up before everybody so I could have that 30 minutes of just peaceful time. But that's not always enough, right? So you have to, I like that visual of the parachute with all the different lines. And so maybe it's a good idea to explore new things. If we know one or two things that help recenter us or help strengthen us, maybe it's good to explore, try different things and see what kind of resonates with your heart, with your soul, right? So that you have several things to choose from. If this line fails, I still have
And
this, or this.
sometimes that exploration itself of trying new things to see it will help you, sometimes that becomes a lifeline too, because you discover something that you really enjoy or that gives you that hope. I'm a creative person, but I wouldn't ever say that I was an artistic person. And then a couple of years ago, I hadn't planned on talking about this, but I had someone who gave me this beautiful willow tree statue, and it's, of this girl who is just, it's called Shine. And I just love it, love it,
Yeah.
love it. I think it's beautiful. And so I have it in front of me all of the time. And anytime that I'm feeling down, I would look at that and I just be like, oh, I want to be this woman who is reaching heavenward with everything she has to give. And so I did something crazy. I'm glad I happen to have this within, reach of a hand. I did something crazy a little while ago, and I started attempting to paint an image of that because I just thought
Oh,
it's so beautiful. And I don't have the original with me that I first started to paint, and frankly, you wouldn't want to see the original because it was not what I would call or anyone else would call beautiful. But I kept trying and I kept trying and I
Right?
kept trying. And eventually I got to the point where
Oh my goodness.
I could paint
It's
different
beautiful.
versions of what I now call the Shine Girl. And
Oh,
I can't paint anything else. If someone says, "Oh my gosh, you're an artist," I'd be like, "Nope, I'm not an artist." But
oh,
I first painted the one
wow.
that was in the statue, and then I thought, well, now I want one that looks like my sister. Now I want one that looks like my niece. Now I want one that looks like my mom. And
Wow.
I discovered that I have this love, not necessarily just of the painting, but in the creation. And I call her Shine Girl, and some of the cards say Shine Girl Shine, and others say Let Your Light So Shine. And I just started. You may think it became a little
Mm,
obsession because it kind of did, but different versions where she's in the dark and she holds up her
ah,
light, and her light
oh,
then becomes the light for so many others.
oh
And
my gosh.
uh, I had never admitted to anyone I had done this. And then I spoke at an event about a month ago, and I thought, I love these. I wonder if anyone else would like them. And so I figured out how to turn the arts into print, these cards. And for the first time ever, I took them with me to an event, showed them to the world, and put them out there for sale. And um, I
Wow.
probably sold 100 little print cards the first day that I ever attempted to put them out there. And I had a little paragraph with my story that just said, I'm not a painter. I don't know how to do anything, but I had this inspiration. And what a lesson, and how beautiful that the shining your light part, like how beautiful that comes together. That by me trying to find something that I could enjoy when I was having a hard time, that resonated with me. And every time I'd see this girl, I would look and I'd realize her hand is empty. Her hand is empty. Her hand can't be empty. But her hand up in the air heavenward is, she's giving her offering. And that's when I started putting some sort of light in her hand, putting a star, or putting a bulb, or putting a ball of light that then emanated out and lit the things around her.
Wow.
Because that shows how she can shine. And I found that in a moment where I was trying to figure out how to get through one of my hard times. And that little statue that sits in front of me all the time was my inspiration, which then became an inspiration for me to help others shine their light.
Oh my goodness. That is so beautiful. And the thing I keep thinking as you're talking about that is that, the possibilities of what we can do with what we've been given are endless, are endless. And we all have, even if the piece of light I feel like I can hold up and share with the world is no more than like a little spark, it's still a beautiful gift and it can help light other people's paths, right? And it help light other people's lives. I love that. And then the power in creating as well.
Mm.
The power in creating. That's beautiful. I have a friend and she does a lot. She just kind of explores different crafts at different times. And um, anyway, but I can see in her own, that's part of her healing process is just being able to create and to do something.
There
And
is
then,
power in creation. Taking something
yeah,
from nothing to having something there that you have created, that you have made. Can you imagine how our eternal God feels when he says, I have made a new creation? From nothing, I have created something From matter that was unorganized, from that piece of clay, I made a pot. I made a person. I mean, it's just such a powerful concept.
It
And
really
I
is.
think, sometimes you say, oh, even if our light isn't that bright, even if it doesn't shine as much as we want it to in that moment. Well, think about one of the most glorious little creatures on the planet, which is a lightning bug or a firefly.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
How big is their light? It's itty bitty. And you know what else? It's not on all the time. Their light flickers on and off. And yet, when you see that light flickering on and off, you know where they are. You know that they are still there, and you follow that light. And if you happen to grab a few of them, and like I did growing up in Northern Virginia, and capture them and then put them into a little jar and try to keep them together, they are brighter, they are beautiful, and they are magical. Because it's when they each have their own light shining that together they become something that illuminates the whole room.
Beautiful, beautiful ending statement. Yeah, the together. It's together and making those connections and sharing what we have, then beautiful, beautiful things happen. Thank you so much, Jodi. So if you've given so many beautiful messages, but if you have one message of hope that you would like to share with our listeners, what would that be?
Let your light so shine. Whatever it is, however small you may feel it is, don't hide it, let it shine. And when you do that, then you can let it grow. And then the light can become brighter and brighter and brighter and can be a source of light for all those around you who need it. You can be their lighthouse in the storm.
Thank you so much, Jodi. So many beautiful lessons, so many tools to really build a life that we can thrive in. I appreciate you coming, and hopefully we can talk again officially.
And I
On
do want to
our,
make an offer to the people
yes.
who are listening and who are watching. Um, if you want to email me at Jodi, Jodi, at jodioBrown.com, I will send you an ebook copy of either The Sun Still Shines or Depression Fighter. And what I will tell you is Depression Fighter is full of tools. So if you are looking for tools to get through the battles in your life and the hard things, that is what Depression Fighter is. 60 to 70% of it is tools, to the point where at the end of a chapter, there are literally bullet points of you could try this, you could try this, you could try this, you could try this. So that when you are in those hard places and you can't seem to find your own light, you can implement that parachute principle and say, but I do have all of these things, and I'm going to go through and try some of those things so that I can keep holding on and I can enjoy the beautiful float down to the earth.
Thank you. And thank you for that gift. And I'll make sure to put that information in the description of the video. So thank you again, Jodi, for this lovely chat. And thank you to our listeners and our viewers for joining us on this episode of Building on the Light.